Hello, it's Beverly with the Intuitive Interior. It is already time for the May of 2023 I Ching reading. So, May in general, just with even before doing these cards, it already has an aspect of change, of transformation, of feeling a little itchy in your own skin. That's because it is a Yin Fire Snake month. Yin Fire is that quiet inspiration. Think of, a candle that in a dark room and, how romantic and, kind of glossy everybody looks when they have that beautiful candlelight. So, there's a little bit of that kind of that feeling of not necessarily seeing the whole picture, but enough to really know that, hey, there's maybe dirt in the corner, but I'm not going to see it. That kind of a thing. Snake energy kind of has had a bad rap throughout history. I mean, think about snakes and how they got slandered during the whole Adam and Eve thing. Um, Snake energy, though, is extremely grounded. Snakes also have to go through that period of molting. And so there's that discomfort that comes with change, that feeling like, the skin just doesn't fit me anymore. So there's going to be some of that already. Again, the month of this Yin Fire Snake doesn't go from May 1st to May 31st. It goes from May 6th through June 5th. This means that the first couple, like the first week of this 9 days, is going to be filled with the remnants of Mercury Retrograde. That also is a perfect time for going back through and looking at, are my attitudes the same? Am I happy with this direction? Do I need to reevaluate what I've been doing, things and how I've been working in this world? The Also, there's that whole shadow period that, again, I always tell people, think about it as taking a container of water and pouring it into another container. There's going to be sloshing, that a time before everything kind of settles back into a nice grounded space. So that's just kind of the backdrop of what we're already looking at. So I actually drew 4 cards for this month. The first is number 38. It's called Opposition. Under here, we have Yin metal on the bottom and Li, which is fire, on the top. This is, the words on this is opposite viewpoints, personal differences, a communication gap, disharmony, misunderstandings, and estrangement. Now, again, this sounds horrible. This, when you hear all of those words, at least for me, one of the first things that comes up is feeling like, oh my gosh, we're going to all, break apart. Nobody's going to get along. And that's not necessarily the case. The focus line on this is number 6. And number 6 in this one, first of all, when it's the top lines, or the 4, 5, and 6, those have to do more with what's happening in the outside world. So you may be finding that where this says stubbornly fostering an attitude that proclaims there's no way the relationship can work, exposes the fact that somewhere in your thinking, there's a hidden fear that perceives coming together as threatening. It's a good idea to clarify within your own mind what it is you're afraid of losing. And once you've got that straight, the situation will improve naturally. This is the most important piece, I think, of this card, is the introspection piece. Now, I've gone back through the past couple of months of readings, and introspection is, still a really big deal. um, Here's a little bit more information from my handy dandy book, because again, I this misunderstandings and communication issues. Again, remember I talked about Mercury still being in retrograde for the, until the 14th of May. It is here it says that cutting off someone because they're different or because you don't agree with their opinions simply shuts the door of cooperation that could provide insight and result in a breakthrough. Once you label a person as impossible, you're cheating everyone, especially yourself. Excluding the difficult is never a solution because it prevents any real understanding of the challenges to be faced and simply prolongs the discord. Um, we are, at least right now, we're in, at least in the US, we are facing a lot of people who believe that their way is the only way, and making space for others who don't have that same um, hard line opinion on people. It makes it difficult to try to find that middle ground. Um, but I really wanted it to again come back and highlight this idea of what is threatening about coming together. Does that mean that you have to give up part of your identity? And is that really true? I don't necessarily think that it is. So the second card, conflict. This is number 6. Again, we've got underneath here, this is the kan, which is the water symbol. And the above that is Qian, the symbol for the trigram for yang metal. So water and metal combining sometimes can will be a little bit hard edged. Will to power, hostility, jealousy, stubbornness, aggression, fear, competitiveness, and controversy. Yay. This one, though, is more of an internal piece because the focus line on this one is number 2. So that is, again, really taking a hard look inside. Where are you in battle with yourself? So this focus line says it's always the ego that gets provoked. The authentic self knows exactly who it is and where it stands. As the old saying goes, as the old saying is true, that in waging our battles, we tend to become like our enemies. You don't want that to happen, do you? Sometimes no. I mean, so there's Michelle Obama actually had that saying that she coined. When they go low, we go high. Many interpreted that as we don't want to become like our enemies, but that doesn't also mean that we can't take some of that conflict, some of that willingness to explore in ourselves where we are missing the mark, missing out an opportunity to understand what are we jealous of. um, it is again talking about stepping out of the battleground, looking at, well, where, and knowing when to step into the battleground. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's you can't always turn the other cheek. Sometimes you got to stand up and say, no, this is a boundary. This is not going to stand. This is where that yang metal comes in. So knowing when to go with the flow and when to have a really strong boundary. But in order to know where that boundary is, you have to really get clear in your own head what is making you tick, what is flowing. Let's see here. This another piece that talks about each of us has learned all kinds of survival techniques in a world that reveres the powerful and those who take dynamic, aggressive action. Winners, in a word, but too often winners need losers. And nobody wants to be one of those. So, what were you afraid of losing at the beginning of whatever this conflict is? And and have you made a choice to follow that fear rather than a sense of your own strength and value? Looking at what it is again inside. The 4th card, it's not really showing up well in this thing. It's called Dispersion, number 59. It has, again, that same trigram underneath for water, the kan, but on top is yin wood. So that is sun. This again, it's the words are diffuse negativity, restore harmony, circulate, revitalize, dissolve divisions, and lighten up. Thinking about how seeds, we're all planting seeds. It's the ripple effect. Uh, as we have come through those first two cards of the opposition and the conflict and kind of reevaluating, what is the macro, what is the micro, how is this all working together? We can come together, we can look at this. The focus line on this one is number one. So again, that comes back into the internal, the very core foundation of us. It says that the best time to overcome any tendencies towards division and separation is right at the beginning when they first appear. Luckily, your vision is clearing just in time because without too much effort and with a sincere intention to restore balance, you can gently steer the course of events towards harmony rather than discord. When again, it comes back to that, going back inside, check yourself before you wreck yourself. um, why and what is it you're fighting for? What kind of ripples, what kinds of seeds are you personally planting? Um, Dissolving any rigidity that has been in place for some time will require a lot of patience and tact. And it makes little difference whether the symptoms lie within your own thinking or have been generated by external circumstances. This is about, again, tuning into your own natural flow. And then the final card that came up, because I really needed a clarifying card. Some of these it just popped out and it just didn't seem to make, didn't feel right. And so the last one that I pulled is this number 10, and it's called treading. Treading is conduct, self awareness, proceed with caution and sensitivity, correct behavior, and act responsibly. The bottom trigram is the Dui, the yin metal. The top one is yang metal. So yin metal, again, it has to do with being flexible, being, going towards harmony and beauty. The yang metal, as we talked about before, was more about knowing where your boundaries are. What are the rules? How do we actually, make all this happen? The focus line on this one is number 5, which again, back to external environment. Says sometimes it can be hard to tell the difference between the quiet commitment of the essence and the cunning determination of the ego, but only from the outside. From the inside, you know perfectly well which mode of conduct is at work, but you have to take the time to go inside and look at the situation from there. Depending on what you see when you get there, you might want to reevaluate where you're coming from and switch gears. Again, going back inside, but to know how you are, whether or not you're okay with what's happening outside. The essence, what they're talking about here is that the essence is kind of like our soul energy. Um, so once we have, okay, if we've lost the awareness and the integrity of essence and become distracted by the demands of the ego, we tend to start acting like robots using old conditioned behavior patterns that are entrenched that we start thinking that this is what makes up me. The ego essentially, okay, there's another paragraph here that I really want to read. When you feel impatient or irritated with someone or something, it is a sure sign that the ego is agitated by the possibility it desires won't be met. Cut off from any influence other than its own wants, the ego fuels an inner attitude that undervalues other people consciously or unconsciously and oversteps their personal boundaries. You tend to believe you have special dispensation to go for it, regardless of whether it is in sync with the rest of life or not. Anyone who seems to be working cross purposes to the ego's agenda is self-righteously dismissed as irrelevant, inept, or impossible. I personally am seeing a lot of this. It's pretty easy to see a lot of this playing out in the political arena, but there are also a lot of, whether it's actually government type politics, if it's interpersonal politics, if it's workplace politics, as soon as someone gets so blinkered, so blinded by what other people may offer, they they just stop realizing that we're all connected. They stop realizing that, or stop caring that what happens to one person does have a ripple effect to what's happening to the rest of the world. It's one of the reasons why I like feng shui so much and why I work on the internal belief systems and mindsets, in addition to looking at how the physical environment flows, because all of that is connected. Um, there was a TV series that I watched for a while, and I cannot remember the name off the top of my head. Um, but it was about these airplane survivors, and they had to keep um, finding other passengers. And anyway, it was their tagline was everything is connected. But the thing is, it is. We are all in this spider web of life, and one thread gets pulled, and it does directly impact or indirectly impact everything else along the way. A very simple example is a traffic light. When one single traffic light is out, all of a sudden, as a community, we have to figure out how to work as a four-way stop again. And there are definitely people who are better at it than others. And so, how can we make sure that we are considering the needs, the wants, and the desires of ourselves in relationship to everyone else? So that is the treading piece. So there you go. You've got all that little information there. I hope it helps you understand why May might feel a little bit itchy internally and annoying externally. Uh, and when you can identify what needs to shift, the relief that it's going to feel, that you are definitely going to feel both inside of your brain as well as outside in your space. So I hope that helps. Have a wonderful May, and go enjoy some flowers.